Greetings and welcome to the setup video for CSD 2541 C++. Now, before we get into the actual setup, a quick note about this class. C++ is a very powerful language, but it is also a difficult language to use. It is an older language. It has been around for a long time and doesn't have the same kind of safety guardrails that newer, more modern languages have. The safety guardrails do make it easier and faster to develop in these languages, but that does come at a cost. If you want to harness the raw power of your computer, you need to use C++. Or if you need to have a microscopic memory footprint to, say, fit onto embedded hardware, you need to be using C++. But this power, this flexibility, comes at a cost. It is a more difficult language to use. Do not get behind in your coursework. It will not go well. And with that wonderfully cheery announcement out of the way, let's talk about the software that you are going to need. First up, the IDE. You are going to need Visual Studio 2026, not Visual Studio Code. Now, you can do C++ development with Visual Studio Code. However, it's a little bit on the fiddly side. And to be quite blunt, if you are going to be using C++ in your job once you graduate and you're out in the workforce, you are almost certainly not going to be using Visual Studio Code. You are going to be using Visual Studio or some other IDE that is purpose-built for handling C++ projects. That, and it's a good idea to be familiar with a variety of IDEs. So, we will be using Visual Studio 2026. URL is visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads. Of course, the link will be in Blackboard. And you want the community version. There is absolutely no reason at all for you to buy the professional version, and you can't afford the enterprise version. Trust me, it is silly expensive. But Community Edition, that is the one you need. Clicking on this will start the download, and it will be a fairly fast download because you are just downloading the setup program. Once the setup program is downloaded, run it, and it will bring up something that looks roughly like this, obviously with things not already selected. For this course, the only thing that you need is the desktop development with C++, this one right here. That is the only one that you need to check to have installed. Now, if you want to install some of these other things just to see what Visual Studio can do, by all means, go ahead and do so. But the only thing that you need is desktop development with C++, this box right here, and you can accept all of the default options that come along with checking this box here. This can be a fairly hefty download, so this will take some time depending on how fast your internet connection is. Once that is installed, you will want to verify that it is working correctly and launch it. Now, if you have done other courses at Clark State, which I'm assuming is the case, given the order this class appears in the program, you will most likely have Visual Studio Code installed as well. So when you are launching, make sure you are paying attention to which one you are launching. For this class, you are going to want to launch Visual Studio, which has the purple icon, not the blue icon. So Visual Studio, purple. Go ahead and launch that. Obviously, you will not have existing projects. You are going to want to create a new project. Depending on the options, you are going to have different things here. It might already be on all languages. It might not. But if you change the language to C++, what you are going to want is a console app. Run code in a Windows terminal prints Hello World by default. Make sure you choose the console app. Click on Next. It will default to a location in the users directory. You can change that if you so desire. Give the project a name. This is not something we will ever be coming back to in class, so the name does not matter. Click on Create. And then once you see this screen here, click on the local Windows debugger button right here, or you can hit F5. And don't worry, we will be going over this program in detail. But just click on that, and then you should see a console window pop up that says Hello World. And if you press any key, it should close the window. This verifies that Visual Studio 2026 has been installed correctly. You will also need a GitHub account, which you most likely already have. But if you don't have one, make sure you get a GitHub account because you will need this for checking out assignments and submitting assignments via pushing them up to the repository. You do not need to have your Clark State email associated with this account. Just make sure that your username is classroom appropriate, which is a good idea in general because including your GitHub account can be a useful thing to have on your portfolio when applying for jobs to show the types of things that you have created with code. Additionally, you are going to want a software program to interact with GitHub, unless you want to go command line for some reason. GitHub Desktop is the best option here. It obviously is designed to work with GitHub and is very easy to use. You do not have to use this program as long as you have the ability to pull code from a repository and push the code back up when you are done. That is all that matters. However, if you do need assistance with said process, you will need to use GitHub Desktop. Before we move on to the online textbook, a quick note about ad blockers. Strongly recommended that you have one. The FBI put out a notice literally saying, use an ad block when browsing the internet. This was about 3 or 4 years ago. It's an official FBI bulletin. Ads can be an attack vector for malicious actors to infect your computer. So it is strongly recommended that you have some form of ad blocker. Ghostery is the recommended one. It works very well on Firefox and Chrome, and any Chrome-based web browser for that matter. It's been around for a long time and has a good reputation and makes it fairly easy for you to whitelist websites that you want to support by viewing their ads. For the online textbook, we will be using W3 Schools, specifically the C++ section. You will need a W3 Schools account, and you will want to make sure that you are logged in to that account when you are reading things. Otherwise, it will not track that you have read things. You can tell that it's tracking because when you have finished reading a section, you will have this green bar on the sections that you have read. Again, it will only track this if you are logged into your account while you are reading the assignment. And this is what you need to take a screenshot of when submitting reading assignments. Again, instructions for this will be on Blackboard. You do not need to pay for a W3 Schools account. We do not use any of the paid resources, only the free ones. You are more than welcome to do so if you wish to get access to some of the additional tutorials and test examples or testing online tests that they have, but you do not need to. The only thing that you need is a free account in order to track what you have read. And that's pretty much it. Again, before I do the recap, remember C++ is a difficult language. It is very persnickety. It is very exact. Make sure that you leave a decent amount of time, at least, especially at the beginning, to work with C++ code to deal with its persnicketyness and just its general unfriendliness. Do not get behind in your assignments. All right, recap time. You need Visual Studio 2026, or whatever the version happens to be for the year that you are looking at this. You need the community version. When you go to install it, the only option that you have to install is desktop development with C++. That is the only one that you have to check in the installer. And you can create a console app to verify the installation has worked correctly. You will need a GitHub account. Make sure that your username is classroom appropriate. You will need some software to pull and push code to the repository. GitHub Desktop is the recommended software. It is recommended that you have an ad blocker installed. Ghostery is the recommended ad blocker. W3 Schools is the online textbook, specifically the C++ section. Make sure that you use this first week to review over the syllabus, get your software installed, get everything updated and ready to go, so that way we can tear into C++ hard and heavy on the second week of class. And that's all I got. Here's to a fun-filled semester of learning one of the more difficult languages out there.